Hi guys, it's Deborah. Welcome to my channel. So today in this video, guys, I'm just gonna sort of do a continuation of my last video where I was talking about being unhoused, and just a lot more thoughts have come, and there's been a lot of people posting about their situation in their country, and everything. It's very radical different things are being done about this intensely explosive homeless situation all over the world. So what I'm going to do in this video is just I'm going to break it down to my, like, where I live, because I don't know what's going on in the United States, and I know it's brutal over there, and I don't know what's going on in Australia, but I know it's probably brutal over there, and any other country where there's experiencing homelessness, not just for van life people, not just for the homeless people, but for like everybody. Can you imagine? This is a massive transformational thing, I think, in humanity. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about my situation in my geography, because that's all I know how to talk about, and just because it's really different, actually. My situation in my country and in my province, in my region, is radically different than what's happening in the United States. And so, yeah, I just want to talk about that, because in the sense of homeless versus van dwelling, because I know there's a big thing going on in the United States, and it's, you know, the temperature is really high, and it's, I'm sure, very scary for people who are living in their van, and lots of information is coming out about it. And yeah, so to my fellow van dwellers in the United States and any country, you know, I feel you, because I think it's probably, well, it's hard everywhere. Okay, guys, so for me, I'm a 57-year-old, born and raised in Canada. I was an Air Force brat. Yeah, so I was an Air Force brat, grew up in the Canadian Air Force, and we traveled all over the world. And that's where a lot of things were really went bad in my life anyway, under the guise of this particular Canadian Armed Forces. That's another whole story. But it did develop into a lot of, because of the abuse, I'll just call it what it is, and the chaos, and you know, we were in a foreign country when this was going on, and you know, we were completely we weren't in Canada, and all the governance of that Air Force base was the Air Force police or whatever, who did nothing. And so for 4 years specifically, while we were overseas, was the horrid abuse that me and my sister and my mother, who has her own things, that's where the abuse happened. And so so as a result of that trauma, is I would run, you know, and hide as a little kid. So there's no, and I knew no one was going to protect me, because even when they did come, they didn't do anything. Nobody came to take us away. We weren't that kid where the children's aid knocks on the door and says, you're not treating your children right, we're taking them away. I wished that would have been a miracle for me. But no, I had to endure it. And nobody came to save me or my sister until finally my mother fled, at which time she was so messed up, she just didn't know how to parent us. Well, there was no parenting. And so then there was that second part of that, you know, part of my childhood, which was bad, but in different ways. So for me, and like, we moved constantly. There was never, I don't know the longest place we stayed. and it was never a home. It was somebody else's home. Anyway, so this is kind of brings me to the reason why I think I thrive in this as a nomad, living in a van, because I have the capacity to be self-sufficient, independent, autonomous. I run my own show here, and I can leave as soon as something gets wanky or whatever. I'm out the door. I'm gone. Or if somebody's hanging out somewhere and I want to hang out with them, I go. Or if someone's somewhere and I don't want to hang out with them, I leave. Right? It's very, very, very conducive to me living an emotionally healthy lifestyle. So here I am living in British Columbia. I've kind of lived all over Canada, but my home, like what I consider home, is British Columbia. I just have a connection to this place like there's nothing else that I've ever felt. So it's my home. Okay, so here in British Columbia, and when I moved to Vancouver. I lived in Vancouver 2005, 6. Yeah, so 20 years. That place was, it was epic. Like, it was so nice. It was still small. It was still like a small town, believe it or not. Anyways, so I've seen that city just be bought up by like foreign investors, and Canada doesn't even own that city. It's owned by China, I think, mostly, or India. And so I watched that deteriorate. And then over the last 10 years, I've just watched things derail and disintegrate in ways that I can't even explain to you. It's like watching a slow death of something, and there's nothing you can do. and you see the people who participate. It's like, it's horror. It's horror to me what has happened to my country. And I'm not going to go into specifics. I want to try to circle this back to the homeless thing, because this is kind of where it's all come to a head. So yeah, so in British Columbia, the capital city of British Columbia is Victoria, BC, which is at the south end of Vancouver Island. Beautiful city, stunningly gorgeous, beautiful. And in the middle of that, very close to the downtown, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 city blocks, called Pandora Street, is a homeless encampment. Well, on both sides of the street. Like, they basically have taken over that street. I do have video footage here. I'm gonna insert it at some point, maybe while I'm talking. So I walked down that street, and I want to talk to you about, before I get all busy-minded. And guys, this is my vlog, so I talk, like, I'm not here doing a presentation. So if you don't like the way I talk, or it's not working out for you, then just don't watch, right? So this is how I video, is a vlog style. I'm not sitting here reading from my presentation. So as the thoughts come, I'm going to share them, and hopefully they are in some kind of order, but it's very fresh, and so it's just coming straight out. Okay, anyways, so I'm going to talk about this issue with the comparison of the homeless situation, which I'm going to show you in this video, and van dwelling, or living in a vehicle, because it's diabolically 2 different things, and it's bizarre. And I'm going to tell you and show you that this is what is going on in my region. So, and anything I talk about here, these people, these homeless people trapped in this, it's not their fault. And I'll tell you why. Because this is government funded homelessness and chaos, like 100%. So anyways, so let me bring it back to Pandora Street, because I hang out in Victoria a lot, and I love it because it's conducive to my lifestyle. I can walk, and I'm always by the beach, and it's just beautiful. So I have been spending more and more time there, and seeing firsthand like what's going on with this homeless situation, and being confused because there's all this pressure, there's all this signage, there's all this literature saying no overnight sleeping in vehicles, like anywhere. So it's difficult, right, to navigate that. So I obey that, but I have found ways, according to their bylaws, of where I can park safely, and so I do that. Right, okay, so staying in this common thread of the homeless situation versus the van dwellers in Victoria, BC, okay? So going to the homeless section, so that homeless demographic are folks who are homeless and also suffering from severe mental issues, untreated, undiagnosed, unmedicated mental health issues. And there's nothing wrong with mental health issues, but if they're not being treated, yeah, it's a problem. And then drug addiction. And this, okay, and I'm just going to say it out. So the government here in Canada, particularly the BC, I don't think this drug program is in other provinces. We're the guinea pigs. The government created what's called safe supply, and it's supposed to be harm reduction. And what this is a pharmaceutical grade of heroin and fentanyl and like some other opioid, Dilaudid maybe, I don't know, probably a combination of all those. And so they came up with this plan that if we just give them the drug, it's going to be safer than them buying the drug off the street. So that's great in theory, coming up with solutions. But oh my God, guys, this is the most horrifying mistake that has ever happened in my lifetime that I'm watching unfolding. And I have watched and witnessed a lot of unbelievable shit in my life. And it triggers me. Like, I'm watching people being killed slowly and horrifically and inhumanely. This is inhumane shit that's going on. Okay, so they give them this synthetic drugs in the hopes, I guess, maybe that they'll take the drug and someday think, oh, I'll stop being addicted to this. No follow-up, no addiction counseling, no. In fact, what they've done now is then they started opening injection sites. Or that was maybe before this safe supply. So yeah, you could go to a government building with little cubicles. They gave you a needle, they gave you a thing to tie on your arm. They kind of watched over you, make sure you didn't OD, because then if you OD'd, right away they'd have Narcan, so they'd just pump you with Narcan, and boom, you're good to go, and start it all over again, just so that you don't die, right? Because then, yeah. So, and they call this compassionate. Not in any world I've ever lived in do I define what I see as compassionate at all. It's the opposite. This is like gaslighting going on. They're like, here's what we're doing to these people, and this is compassionate care. It's like beating up a dog and going, but we're caring for it. It's just, and people support this. So then and I'm going to reference a video. I will never do this justice, but because I'm trying to keep it on just the homeless versus the van life community here in Vancouver Island, and why it's so radically different than most places. Most places are cutting back. They're tearing them up. You got to go. It's against the law, right? All these new laws and stuff, and they want to clean it up. Everybody's doing it differently. Fair enough. I'm sure some things are not going to work well, but that's not my business. This is my business. And yeah, so they, and here's what happened. So there's this homeless encampment down in Pandora Street. I don't know if I'm going to have this video going, but I want you to see for yourself. And they've put up these blue barricades, and I'm not sure if those barricades, and this is city property, city equipment. They put up these barricades to either keep us safe from them, or them safe from us, or them safe from each other. I don't know, but they are. And that, you're forced to kind of walk around their encampments. They pitch a tent. I saw the other day somebody just in the middle of the sidewalk just pitched a tent, put down their sleeping bag, and went and had a nap. And then what happens is all the food comes around, or there's a place where they go and they can just go get their food, good food. And then what happens is a government health, like the health authority, comes around in a van, or they distribute it in some way, like an ice cream truck, and they come up and you line up and you get your Dilaudid, your fentanyl. And I have seen this with my own eyes. Like, I'm not even kidding you. And then they go back. But what's happening now is they're taking this prescription medication that they get for free. And because it's not potent enough for their level of their addiction, they sell this pharmaceutical grade stuff to people who aren't as addicted as they are, like kids, teenagers. And so it's become like a currency. So they trade this drug off and get money, and then they can go buy the street grade fentanyl. And this street grade fentanyl, guys, is flowing heavy through these streets. And I don't care what people say. And I know there's a lot of the drug trade coming through British Columbia is unbelievable. There's videos and there's documented evidence, but the government it's become so, I guess, authoritarian, or like they just gaslight you. So you see the problem and they're like, no, this is fine. Like when you walk down, I'll show you on Pandora Street, they say to you, this is compassion, this is harm reduction, this is humane. This is not fucking humane. We would never in a million years do this to dogs. Just corral them in a pen area in the middle of the street in downtown in the capital city, and just let them mangy and give them and just walk by and watch them killing each other, killing themselves and killing each other, and just be like, oh, this so fucking ridiculous. It's inhumane. And then we would so that's the extent of, and then so I want to get to this other point. I ended up speaking to, I guess, a social worker, like a government paid social worker who like, she was sweet and everything, but she knew nothing. So, and I was probably educating her, which is fine, it's good. And she was just saying, like, are there resources we can help you with? And I said, I gave her a couple of suggestions, and she just looked at me with a blank look, like she just has no idea. And they are force-fed this information that they're doing this good thing, and, I guess they buy it. So she said to me and gave me all this information. I'm going to show you right here, because I let her know I live in my vehicle and I don't live on the street, thank God. But I need a safe place to sleep. I don't want to pitch a tent on Pandora Street, because I feel like I would be really unsafe. And I'm talking like this to her because I want her to, I'm hoping that somewhere when you're talking to somebody, that they see how absolute ludicrous this fucking situation is. So she says, no. Well, she says, yeah, you can pitch a tent, and I'll show you. So she gives me this pamphlet, this government-made pamphlet that government employee sat down, and there was probably a committee meeting, and there was probably like a lot of boardroom time spent, and lots of hundreds of thousands of dollars probably. And of course, government employees take 3, 4, or 5 times as long to do a thing. So can you imagine the resources that went into producing this document? I'm probably going to show it here at some point, or link it and it's called Temporary Sheltering, I believe. I'm not looking at it right now. And it's a guide. It's a guide for homeless, if you're homeless, it gives a map of all the different parks, like really beautiful parks that you can go and pitch your tent because you're homeless, and just sleep in your tent in these parks. It's legal and it's encouraged and it's supported. And then I think that actually now they're actually giving people tents as well. I don't know if it's here. I just remember hearing something. But yeah, so there's 34 different places in Victoria. Like, that's a lot of choices, right? It's all over the city, beautiful areas of the city. You can pitch your tent, between the hours of, I think, 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. and you're good to go. And I'm looking at her and I'm saying, okay, so are you saying then I should or could park my van somewhere and get out of the van because I'm not allowed to sleep in my van, and then go pitch a tent in the park on the grass right there, and that's going to be legal? Then I'm in the right loophole? And she said, yeah. Like, well, at that point she agreed that this was really off, but that's how it is. So if bylaw comes, if you're parked, like, and I checked the bylaw, I think I'll stick it here, I forget what number it is, and it's very vague. Just no overnight sleeping in vehicles. That's it. That's the rule for van. But there's all this massive amounts of resources being poured into pamphlets and committees and for just pitching a tent and living like actual homeless, right? And then when it gets hard, when it gets difficult, you can just go up to this truck that distributes fentanyl and stuff for free, like it's an ice cream truck, and just soothe it all away. And then when you get hungry, you just go get in line, you get Subway sandwiches type things and soup and all that stuff. And then when your high starts to wear off, comes the van again, and you just and then when that wears off, you start selling your stuff, and then you can go buy street grade, and boy, then you're really then that's it, you're in. And this is how they do it. They are fucking supporting, spending. Like, when I hear other governments saying we're done with homelessness and drug abuse and da-da-da, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's awesome. I think there needs to be some clarification on homelessness and van dwelling and all that kind of stuff, because it's not the same to me. And I'm like, wow, that is so different than here, because here they support it. They make pamphlets and they just put up nice barriers so that, people won't walk on your feet while you're passed out. And on these posts, right, there's those Narcan kits, and there's security guards at every, 10 feet or so. And they just observe, and then the second somebody ODs, they just Narcan them, which kills the high, stops them from dying from an overdose, brings them back. They're kind of pissed off because you wrecked their high. And then they just chill out for a bit, and then they just start all over again. And this is how they're treating human beings. And then our, Canada has been just giving so much money to other countries in need, and our people here are suffering the most disgusting, horrible, slow, evil, degrading, inhumane way. And everyone's like, well, these other countries, they need it. We fucking need our own resources to clean up our own people. And then once that happens, we can help people. I mean, I don't know. How is that not a logical thing? If a father has a family and he's supporting his family, but he can no longer do that, and then when he does get resources, he just takes them over to the next house and gives them to the other kids, and his kids have nothing? No, What has happened that this fucking illogical thinking has just, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I could think of is that people have been brainwashed, because you cannot, as a human being, walk down that street and see it and think that's okay. You're not human. Sorry. Something has happened there, and it is inhumane. We would never, ever in a million years treat dogs like that. Dogs. We would never, ever treat dogs like that. Okay, guys, I want to just circle back to the actual discussion, which is van dwellers versus homelessness in my region. And I just shared all the homeless resources and the amount of, what's going into that and what's not going into van dwellers, because it is an issue and it's growing. And here's the thing too, is the van dwelling community demographic is really three. It's split into, well, just to be simple. So there's people who are living in vehicles because they have to, because otherwise they would be pitching a tent on Pandora Street, right? So they cannot afford rent, and they're just people who have fallen through the cracks, like me. They just, yeah. So, and there are a lot of women. I have met a lot of women who, in my area, who live in their vehicle. And yeah, it's just a very real thing. And then there's that demographic. You live in your vehicle because you're homeless. Basically, you don't have a sticks and bricks to rent or buy. So, and your income does not allow you to rent or buy. So, in that sort of category. Then the second demographic of van dwellers are those who, are middle of the road, work full time or have full time income, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs now, and they're very nomadic, but they don't want to pay these crazy amounts of rents, so they fix up a vehicle and they work from their vehicle, or they live in where they work, and that's what they've chosen to do. And then there's the third demographic. The third demographic are people who, this has become like they want to just sell everything, buy an RV or a big fancy Sprinter, and just, tour around and stuff like that. And so you take all those three demographics and you crunch them together. So, the community is like, wow, there's just so many van life people. And most people don't know my demographic, the stealthy car life, minivan life, even some van life, because we're under the radar. We have to survive. So we're not with all our fancy gear. And there's nothing wrong with any of the other things. We should be able to live how we want, given the circumstances of our present day. I'm all for that. You do you, boo. But the demographic, and in relation to how the city is dealing with the demographic, right? I believe that they should sit down and get their little committee together and put some resources into dealing with this problem. Don't put one sentence on a city bylaw document that says no overnight sleeping in vehicles, because it's just stupid. It's a stupid thing, so they have to deal with it. And you need to create something, just like how they created the pamphlet, and they went around to some different parks and they thought, hey, wouldn't this be great for a homeless person to pitch a tent here? Let's put that in our fancy little document. And oh yeah, and over there, and then and also on this pamphlet they give you resources of who do you call and how to kind of, a support. It's a support document. So come up with that. Find a place. There's so many places for people to park who need a place to park. Like, they're gonna have to get it together. You can't just keep knocking on van doors. And I don't even care anymore. I used to be afraid of that. If they knock on my door, I will just have a conversation and I'll be straight up. And I'm not going to treat anybody with disrespect. Obviously, they're going to treat me with respect. We're going to have just a normal conversation. And then we just deal with it, case by case. I've never had that, thank God, knock on wood. And, because I've come to this place is I'm open now to, work with the system as it is. I'm not going to kick against the pricks anymore because you get nowhere. But I'm also going to stand my ground. I'm doing this not because I'm doing this for my reason. And so this demographic issues need to be addressed. That's it. And so somewhere along the way, maybe I've talked to another van life guy about getting an advocate group together and meeting with city people and coming up with our own fancy document of where to go and what to do. We need resources too, because we're not going away anytime soon. So that's basically where we're at in terms of the homeless versus the van dwellers and how it all comes together. And I think that we just need to deal with each one, right? And make it work, because it's here to stay. This is a new thing in life, and we'll just, so we just got to figure it out. So that's where things are at in and around Victoria, BC. And, again, every city, so you don't have to email me and say, that doesn't happen in our city. I know. I know it happens differently, even region to region. I'm just sharing the ridiculousness of what is happening here in relation to what I see and hear out in the world. And it's just shocking based on what I see here. Okay, so I get that everybody is having a different experience and different levels of intensity and fear, and you got to get yourself out of fear. I think that's important. This is where I have taken myself out of fear and into just proactive. Not even proactive, it just is. And so I'm obviously passionate about it, but at the same time I sit with myself and I'm like, okay, here's kind of how things have gone for me. So the first 4.5 months, like, I phoned the right authorities and said, as of this day, I will be homeless, living in a Ford Fiesta. Is there any housing that could be available based on my circumstances? And they said, no, but just touch base with us, in a little bit, or we'll, upgrade the priority of your housing needs and see what happens. So I said, okay. So during those 4.5 months that I was living in my car and I didn't get any phone calls and nobody reached out and said, how you doing, Deborah? And I'm, so other than my doctor is so amazing. I have been blessed with the most amazing human for a doctor. I'm so grateful, be forever grateful for that. And he's been a support in a way that he probably doesn't realize. It keeps me going. So super, super blessed. Where was I? All right. So during that time, I'm living in my car thinking, well, possibly at any moment I could get a phone call and say, we have an apartment for you. So that's how I kind of was living for the first, it was, I guess, around the 4-month mark that I thought, you know what, Deborah, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to come and help you. You are so far down the priority list that it's just not going to happen. So get your shit together, figure this out. What are we doing? So that's when the thoughts about the van and how life could be much easier. Should I be in a van? I would have kept doing it if this didn't work out the way it did. I would have kept living in my car. I know lots of people who are doing it, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's better than living in a tent in a park, even if it's a nice park, or living on Pandora Street or any other homeless tent encampment. And so I'm always grateful for that. And so then what I lately, so as all this has been like, it takes me a long time to process and just come to a place of peace with this. Imagine, but I had to work on it. And so this is the lifestyle I'm choosing. So I choose, right? There are choices out there. I just named off a bunch. And so what I think everybody needs to do, every human being needs to look at their options and make a choice that is in alignment with you. Not your friends, not your mom, not your dad, not your son, not your daughter, not your boss, not your uncle. If you don't make decisions based on your alignment, you'll get lost. You'll be lost. Like over and over and over, or you'll be controlled by somebody and something. And you'll give your power to that thing, place, person, whatever. And I see a lot of that, right? People are just completely powerless, and they're owned in some way, shape, or form by whatever they've succumbed to. Their friend group, their work situation, all of it. And yeah, so I went deep and I said, am I prepared to not live in a home like ever again? Or at least for the, I don't know, next 5 years. Does my 5-year plan include living in an apartment? Because I needed to just get that right. I didn't want to keep living in a vehicle hoping one day that I'd get a phone call and then everything would be okay. I needed to come to terms with it. And so that's when I chose, again, but more solid, that I was going to live like this, and I was going to make it work, and I was going to follow the rules and the ludicrousy of what the actual situation is, and I would find the places for me because I have the capacity to do that, and that I would create this beautiful life for myself and do that every day. Because I believe, and you may not believe this, and I do believe in a higher source of love. Let's call it, you can call it God, whatever. I'm good, this is so I believe in good, and I believe that we can have good, and not all these really hard things that I go through are just because it's hard. I'm in a hard lifetime, a lot of hard learning lessons, and I just embrace them. And I feel like the best thing I can do for myself is just get the lesson, move through it with grace, as much grace as I can, and then try to rebuild something that's happy for me. And if I do another face plant or something knocks me upside the head, I'm so resilient at this stage. So resilient. And I'm so determined that I'm going to finish this life on my terms, and I'm going to go all the way. I'm an Aries rising, so nothing will stop me from giving up on me and this life. And even though nothing seems to be in accordance with what I see as logical, there are massive amounts of things in my environment that I love and treasure and are precious to me. And so that's my focus. That will be my focus. I'm not going to probably talk anymore about this issue because it's come full circle for me, which is what this whole talk is about. It's just calling it what it is. Here's the situation. How am I dealing with it? Boom, I'm done. I'm just going to live my life as a minivan lifer. I love this lifestyle. It totally It totally works for me. Some of it, obviously it's hard sometimes. There's hard things with everything. Whatever choice you make, there's going to be challenges. And so, anyways, I know that. So when I said went through that process of becoming all in, I knew there was going to be some hard times, and how was I going to deal with them? And so I'm in. This is my lifestyle until such a time where I choose that maybe I want something different. And that for me may look like being in a really rural homesteading type of land. But I will always be a nomad, so I need to be somewhere where I can still come and go. But the thought of having a safe place to go is really what's starting to stir in me. This somewhere I can just hang out, chill. If I want to grow a garden one summer, or do you know what I mean? That is just slowly starting to stir. But I'll never get that in a high-rise apartment in an urban city. I will die, I think, or suffocate in that kind of environment. So yeah, so I'm not completely at peace at this stage, but I feel that I've gone all the way through it and shared this with you guys as well, which is pretty intense, right? It's been very difficult for me to do that. And so that's why I take pause before I speak sometimes, and just, I'm trying to do this in a good way. And also because I'm talking to my people, right? And if you're not my people and you don't get it, then just like, I don't know why people would watch my channel if they're not into this, or they don't need it, or they're whatever. This stuff is for my people. And guys, I love you so much, and I thank you for your support and the beautiful messages I get from you guys. Seriously, I'm doing this because I know I've got you guys, okay? And I know that most of you get it, or you at least on some level can relate to all this. And so that's who this message is for. And whoever it's not for, just leave. Goodbye. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure I said that and let you guys know that, because a lot of times I'm just like, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore, like YouTube, or sharing my life, and then you expose yourself, right? I'm pretty tough, but holy guys, there are some people out there that are, I know now that it's just this whole caring community, and they get off. I don't know. Anyways, this population demographic of people who, I don't even have a word for it. It's just so disgusting what some people do and say. And yeah, it just disgusts me. And so I'm not going to give it any more airtime, but what I did want to do is make sure I told you guys, my viewers who I love and care about, and I know who love and support me. You guys are the bomb. Okay, so I'm going to probably close this out now. Good Lord. I wanted to get this and another video done before I have my surgery, because then I won't be able to talk for a long time. Well, at least not with teeth. So anyways, guys, I'm going to close this out. I don't know when I'm going to see you again where I can talk and stuff like that. It's going to be a bit of a minute, but I will keep you guys posted. I don't know, I'll do a community post here and there. And yeah, I will miss you, but I'll see you soon. Take care.